Hello everybody, Shaun Keenan here, and in this tutorial for Tuts Plus, we're going to look at modeling tips and tricks 2, Dynamesh and ZRemesher. So initially whenever you launch ZBrush, minus the default UI, and I'll make sure that you guys get my UI so that you can follow along properly. You get your Z projects to load here. And since we're going to be taking a look at Dynamesh here, there's a couple ways that we can go ahead and do this. And I just want to make sure that before we go ahead and get started, we're going to have everything mirrored up properly. And we're not going to be using this Dynawax 28 ZBrush project file. I'm going to go ahead and import a sphere here. So just to close this, we'll go ahead and hit the comma button. Okay, and you can see that the quick save is loaded there. So we're just going to go ahead and import a sphere object here. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag this in and hit T so that we can manipulate this. Also making sure that we have our mirror symmetry activated. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit X here. And I want to take a look to make sure that we definitely have the right axis is modeled here. Okay, and working. So you can see where we have that little red dot on the left hand side of the screen there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at Dynamesh here. And to get this into a Dynamesh, what we need to go ahead and do is just use our tool, geometry, Dynamesh. Go ahead and turn on Dynamesh. So now you can see where our mesh has turned into a Dynamesh. And we're definitely just going to have to smooth this out a little bit, but we can go ahead and do that as we work. So to get modeling here, we're also going to import a image. And we're going to work through this entirety. Okay, so we're just going to come up here and make sure that we minimize the tool there. Texture, or you can import it that way. Or what I'm going to go ahead and do is just hit my comma button. And since I have a shortcut here for Tuts Plus, modeling tips and tricks 2, we're going to go ahead and import this Manatee image. So I just need to double click this. Okay, and hit the spotlight button. I'm going to go ahead and save the spotlight here so that you guys can have this ready to go. So I'll just save it in the tips and tricks folder. We'll call this the Manatee Spotlight. Okay, go ahead and minimize everything down here, and I can leave the image basically where it is here. I'll just go ahead and turn the opacity down a little bit here. Okay, and making sure that we have those mirror symmetry on correctly. We're going to go ahead here and start manipulating our mesh. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the Move Topological brush down here in our left hand corner, and we're just going to slowly manipulate this until we get the shape that we want here. And you can see that what I did there was left drag, and this basically is going to rebuild your Dynamesh geometry. So if we go ahead and manipulate here, oops, and I'm just going to try and get this into a shape that I'm happy with here real quick. And I'll just go ahead and slowly manipulate over. Okay, just making sure that I manipulate into the scale that is going to work into a scale that's going to work for us here. Let me go ahead and turn our image off real quick. If I left click and drag and holding down Control, you're going to see that it's basically going to rebuild our geometry in a way that it's going to be much easier to manipulate. Okay, so we can slowly here just work through our method and work through our model. And we're going to be doing this entirely so that we can definitely take a look here at Dynamesh and ZRemesher properly. Okay, so, and using those in conjunction will really pay off here. So let me just go ahead and bring our image back, and I'll just go ahead and slowly manipulate our geometry here and just try and get a proper shape here. Okay, So you'll see that every so often whenever I make some big geometric adjustments that I definitely go ahead and re-Dynamesh our model. So let's go ahead and turn that dynamic for our draw size off there. Okay. Go ahead and just try to get a shape in here that's proper. Go ahead and just change the material there. And we're just mainly trying to match the underlying image for the moment. Okay. So you can see where we definitely have the base of the model, but this is definitely way too wide, so we're going to have to go ahead and scale this in here a little bit. Definitely have to smooth it down. But let's say that we're not necessarily happy with this geometry. What we can do is come up here to Tool. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn Dynamesh off. So now this is going to allow us to go ahead and ZRemesh this. I'm going to take the adaptive off, and I'm not going to touch any of the default settings other than turning the adaptive off. Go ahead and hit ZRemesh. Okay, so here you can see that we get a decent remesh of the body. Definitely have to turn our smooth factor down here. Okay, and this is going to allow us to manipulate the mesh a little bit more and a little bit easier for the most part right now. Okay, so we'll go ahead here and just continue to work through our model. Okay, and I definitely need to flatten this tail up. Okay. And it's going to be a bit more round. So we'll just turn our size down here. Okay, and just continue working here, just so that we can match the shape of the image just that much easier. So I'll go ahead and turn our image back on by hitting Z. Okay, and I need to scale this down just a little bit here, and you can see that I have the tail to basically be a little bit different than what is actually in the image. Okay, and that's fine because this tail that's in the image is rotated a little bit more towards facing us. So we'll just slowly here manipulate the mesh just a little bit more so that we can really match the underlying concept image here, because we're going to be jumping back into Dynamesh here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and try and manipulate the shape here, just so I get something that I'm going to be happy with here. Okay, so I think I'm going to be fairly happy with this shape, except for maybe the stomach there. So let me go ahead and hit Shift Z to turn that image back off. Go ahead and use our inflate brush here. Okay, to fatten that stomach up just a little bit. Basically round it off just a little bit more. Go ahead and manipulate the top of the model here as well. Okay, maybe round out the head here just a little bit, not too much. Okay, so go ahead and put this back into place here. Turn our image back on, and I think that I'm fairly happy with this geometric structure so far. Okay, so what I want to go ahead and do is jump back into Dynamesh here, because I'm definitely going to have to pull out the arms here. And you can see where whenever I turn that Dynamesh back on, that our geometry changes. So this is more like molding clay and modeling clay, and it just makes it much easier for you to go ahead and block out your character. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull out the shape for our arms here. So the easy way that I have found for me to go ahead and do this is I'm going to mask out an area simply by holding down Control, painting out the mask. Okay, I'll go ahead and turn that image off. To invert that mask, I'm going to hold down Control and left click. That way I'm only going to be pulling out that section of the mesh. Continually using our Move Topological brush, which is going to give us a more accurate manipulation of that. You can see that pulling that out is somewhat easier. Okay. And I'll go ahead and turn our image back on. And I'm just going to try and match the underlying concept here with these. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just try to manipulate this a little bit. Okay, go ahead and probably smooth that out a little bit. And you can inflate this as well. But I also want to show you a little bit problematic information here. So let's say that our mesh here, if I can use our inflate brush, looks like this, where we have the sort of impinging and mesh that's actually bad. If you go ahead and remesh this, this isn't going to work. So you need to make sure that you have a completely full touching mesh. Then if you remesh it, you can see where that Dynamesh will work a little bit better. So just make a note of that. So we'll just go ahead and continue to work here. I need to maybe thin up just a little bit. Doesn't necessarily have to be so chunky here, even though he is a sea cow. So we'll just go ahead and work through making our manatee here, and we're going to work through the process here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and scale this back down, go ahead and bring our image back in. Okay, and we'll just try and match the shape here just a little bit better. And you don't have to, match it 100% if you don't want to. I'm just here to show you guys a method that I like to use for some modeling tips and tricks. Okay, so go ahead and maybe turn that image off, because I think that we're ready at this point to really start sculpting the model. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn that image off, and we'll go ahead and ZRemesh, or I'm sorry, Dynamesh one more time, just to make sure that we get a good topological layout there. Okay, so we'll come over here to Tool, turn our Dynamesh off, ZRemesh, and for the target poly count, I'm going to go ahead and jump this up to 100, just so it's going to do the model completely. I'm going to go ahead and hit ZRemesh. Now, just as a note, this may take a little bit of time, and if it does, once I hit that button, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then we'll come back once it go ahead and ZRemeshes. So let me go ahead and hit the button there, and I thought it would actually take a little bit longer than that, so we get a little bit extra video there. Okay, so now you can see that we've gone ahead and ZRemeshed it, and at this level of ZRemesh, this is obviously way too high to go ahead and start sculpting on, because you can see the extreme density in this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is hit half, and ZBrush is going to do its best to cut this geometry in half while I ZRemesh it here a second time. And it just takes a little bit of time to go ahead and kick through. Okay. So at this level of geometry and polygon count, you can probably go ahead and start sculpting on this. But for me personally, I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half one more time. And right away, this looks pretty decent. Even this is, really fantastic, and I could probably sculpt on this. I think I want to go ahead and remesh it one more time. Okay, so now this is more of a really good starting base to make our manatee here. And you can see how quickly with Dynamesh and ZRemesher you can get an absolutely wonderful base of your object. So let's go ahead and bring our image back here, just to make sure that we're at least in the ballpark here. So continually using our Move Topological brush, I'll just simply make some more minor adjustments here. Not too much. Okay. So I think that we're good here to go ahead and start sculpting on our model. So I'll go ahead and turn our polyframe off, and we'll start with our subdivision level 2. And we'll just continue to manipulate our mesh here for a little bit, just to make sure that I get a really solid base to go ahead and sculpt on. Okay, and that's basically all I'm doing right now, is just making sure that I get a really solid base. It's just basically like building a house. I mean, you really want to have a solid foundation for modeling whatever it is that you're modeling. Okay, and quickly jump up subdivision levels, and you can see right away where our mesh is looking really good. It's also really smooth here. Just definitely have to smooth out a little bit of the head there. Probably have to pull that up just a little bit. Okay. I'll make sure that you guys get all these project files and also the sculpt as well when it's done here. Okay. So maybe I think we're ready to go ahead and bring in some eyes. So let me go ahead and bring my image back, and I just want to make sure that I get those eyes into the place that I want. And you can see where I did mess up a little bit there with the geometry. So we'll go ahead and pull that back here. Okay, maybe pull this down. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint in some eyes here. And when I say paint in, I'm going to go ahead and mask out an area to simply draw in our eye shape. So I need to make sure that I bring in the opacity correctly. And it looks like the eyes are going to be right here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and paint in that mask. Turn off our image. Okay, we're going to go ahead and invert that mask. I'm going to hit the comma button, go up here to brush, miscellaneous, eye, just double click it, and this will allow you to go ahead and draw in an eye. And I need to actually go up one more subdivision level there, just to make sure that I get a high enough resolution base so that that eye is going to come in the way that I want. Okay, so we'll just simply paint the mask there, turn that image back off, invert our mask, go ahead and pull that eye in. Okay, and we'll just start manipulating the eye alpha here into a shape that we want. Okay, so we can start sculpting on our eye. That smooth is just a little bit too high for me, so we'll go ahead and start sculpting there. Okay, so maybe we can go ahead and append some spheres in here so that we can create our eyes. And just need to scale this down, and you'll see that I'm only doing one here, and I'll go ahead and just mirror the other one over once we get this into place correctly and get the underlying mesh to be where we want it to be. So I just need to draw out that manipulator size here. Just make sure that I scale it down correctly. Okay. And just try to get this placed properly. Can't definitely leave it like that because his eye shouldn't be sticking out that far. Okay, so I think that's good here. I might just have to scale it up just a little bit. And go ahead and pull it down here. And maybe go ahead and push it in just a little bit. Okay, so we'll go back to our draw mode. Just jump back to our Manatee mesh. And we're going to go ahead here and manipulate our geometry, just so I can shape that eye here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and use our clay buildup here so I can make the geometry for the eye. And I'll just simply take the brush and clay it up here. Okay, and just slowly work to get that clay to fill in the eye where I need it to. Okay, and we'll zoom in here. And I definitely have to move over a little bit here. And if you want, you can always jump up another subdivision level so you can see that we're at subdivision level 5. Because with ZRemesher and Dynamesh, you definitely have the ability to keep your geometry low, but also have the ability to make a really outstanding mesh for yourself. Because it, no matter what you do, you're definitely still going to have to jump back into your primary 3D modeling application if you wanted to rig and animate this model. So the object here is really just to make a mesh that's really outstanding and give you the best possible ability to go ahead and not really have to do 4 hours of retopology. So we just want to make sure that we get a geometry here that has all that detail, but also a really good shape into what you're looking for. Okay, so using those in conjunction with Dynamesh and ZRemesher, you really should, try them out and test them. So let's go ahead here and duplicate this model, because our geometry for this is just a little bit too high at the moment. So we're not going to go ahead and Dynamesh this. All I'm going to simply do is cut the ZRemesher in half here. So this just takes a little bit of time to kick through. Okay, so that's gone ahead and kicked through. Let's take a look at our first ZRemesh, and that actually looks fairly decent, but this is definitely too high to really start creating different subdivision levels on. So I'll go ahead and remesh again here, just making sure that I cut it in half. Okay, so even this is just getting that much better. So I'll go ahead and remesh one more time. Okay, so there you can see where we have a really decent low level of subdivision. So go ahead and just jump back up to 3 here. And I'll come up to our subtool, just turn on our original Manatee. Come down here to project, and I'm going to make the distance 0.1. This way I encapsulate all the mesh detail that's on this one to our new remeshed mesh. So I'll go ahead and hit project all, and you can see that we get that detail even though there's a little bit of mesh faceting and hard edges there. We can go ahead and clean that up fairly simply. So go ahead and just turn back on our eye. We'll zoom in here. Okay, and just start manipulating our mesh and just continue to work through here. There's really no, right and wrong method to, which brushes you're using to go ahead and sculpt on your model. You definitely just want to try and work through the ones that best work for you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and you can see that we have our eye there. At least for the most part, we still definitely have to do a lot of mesh adjustment here and really start getting that detail out more. So I'll go ahead and just jump up to subdivision level 4 here, just so that I get a little bit better feedback on the mesh. Okay, and I'm masking out here so that I can manipulate around the eye a little bit better. And to do that, I'll just use our clay brush, just turning our focal shift down. Maybe you have to turn the intensity of our smooth up just a little bit there. Okay, oops. So you can really see in about 24-25 minutes how quickly we can really get a really good looking base for a model, no matter what it is that you're doing. and just use our Dynamesh standard brush here. Continue to use our inflate brush to continually build up some of our mesh geometry here. And since this isn't necessarily a really complicated model to go ahead and make, simply just keep ZRemeshing, re-dynameshing, remanipulating of our geometry here. I actually wanted to scale out there, as you can see. You definitely don't want to rush through these models. Just take your time and work with your Dynamesh and ZRemesher, and you can really come up with something that's really cool and really looking good. Okay, so let's go ahead and just continue to shape our eye here. And I'm just trying to look at the shape here to make sure that I'm getting exactly what I want. So I think I need to pull that bottom part out a little bit there. Maybe push this corner in. Okay, so I think that we're okay there. And at this point, what I'm going to go ahead and do is mirror this eye geometry over. This way I can get it on this side as well. So to do that, we'll just come over here to our tool menu, select our eye geometry, Z plugin, subtool master, mirror. We're going to mirror this in the x-axis. Okay, so you can see where we get that extra eye geometry in here. And I'm going to switch to my regular move brush, hitting X just to make sure that our mirror is on. Going to jump up a couple subdivision levels here. 4 or 5 should be good, simply just because all we really need here is just the pupil and the cornea there. Something to represent that. I'll go ahead and smooth that back just a little bit there. Okay. We'll go ahead and just jump back to our Manatee here. And we'll just continue to work on our eyes and on our face of our Manatee here. So I need to smooth this back a little bit. Okay. Go ahead and pinch this stuff down as well. And I'm going to go ahead and fatten our geometry up here also a little bit. Go ahead and take our Dynamesh standard, try and cut in that detail just a little bit more there. You can always jump up to subdivision level 5 as well. Just slowly, build that back, making the cuts that you want. Okay, so we can really manipulate our geometry here. You can see that I'm doing this slow, and that's just to make sure that we definitely get the mesh that we want, and that way we don't have any major problems. Okay, so I think those eyes are basically where I want them now. Let's go ahead here and cut in our mouth. So to do that, we'll just simply use our Dynamesh standard here. And I'm looking at a concept on my other screen of a Manatee. We're not going to do a 100% accurate mouth for the Manatee, but we're going to at least try and keep it a little bit cartoony here. Let's go ahead and just simply draw on our mesh here to make our mouth. And you can see that I really just made one or two cuts there, and go ahead and manipulate this geometry a little bit, and maybe just pull this mouth in a little bit more rather than having it so wide at the back. You can probably go ahead and pinch this down as well. Go ahead and use our inflate brush for this to fatten those lips up a little bit here. So it looks like he actually has some lips. And at this part, we're pretty much ready to start doing some of the alpha detailing, because I don't think we really need much more. I mean, maybe we can go ahead and, if we wanted to, throw in some cheeks here. So let's go ahead and mask out our lips here. Okay. Maybe throw in some extra chunk for the side of our mouth here. And we'll just jump down to subdivision level 4 so that we can have an easier method of pulling the sides of our mouth out here. Go ahead and fatten these up a little bit. Okay. Maybe even for the front here as well. Go ahead and clear that mask. And go ahead and smooth these back. And it kind of looks a little bit weird, but that's okay. I'm just trying to make a shape that I think is at least funny for myself. Let's take a look here at our low-res geometry. And you can see, like I said, this geometry would be really good to take into, your primary 3D application. The only thing that you would really have to do is a little bit of retopology for the eyes. Definitely a little bit of retopology here for the mouth. Okay. But you can see where when you use Dynamesh and ZRemesher together, you can really come up with a really good base for your sculpts, but also, making sure that you have geometry that's, really going to go ahead and work for, your primary 3D applications. No matter what, you're definitely going to have to do at least a little bit of retopology in those primary 3D applications, and definitely a little bit of fixing just to make sure that all that stuff is at least going to work properly to be rigged and stuff. Okay, so I think that at that point we have all of our mouth shape in here. So let's go ahead and throw on some alphas for this guy. Let's just take our standard brush. Go ahead and take alpha 58, use a spray method, subtraction. Go ahead and just throw on some alphas there, and I think I should just jump up one more subdivision level so that we have subdivision level 6. And just have to slowly paint this alpha stuff and information in here. Go ahead and paint down here to the base of the tail. And before I start spraying on the tail, what I want to go ahead and do is just turn our alpha off here. Z add, freehand. And I'm just going to basically, that was too much, throw in a middle bone for the tail there, if you can see it. Just have to cut that back a little bit, so we get a little bit of spine information there. Okay, so we'll go back to the Z sub alpha texture 58, 59, spray, and we'll go ahead and just spray here. Okay, and we'll go ahead and spray the side body here. Making sure that we get that belly as well. Get our head here too. Making sure that we get the entire model here. So there you can see in about 36, 37 minutes we can really block out characters and basically get a good portion of the sculpting actually done to go ahead and create a character that you would definitely be happy with. Even though this is not necessarily a very complicated shape, you can definitely see how quickly you can go ahead and get all this stuff done. But before we go ahead and end this, let's say that at this point your sculpt is done and you're ready to go ahead and jump over to Maya to start doing some of the retopology work. I'm going to show you a method here that's going to at least give you a little bit of a head start to go ahead and get that retopology done. What you would want to go ahead and do, let's go ahead and delete our original here. Making sure that we select our manatee that we have sculpted. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Okay, go ahead and turn our what would be our normal map manatee off. Also go ahead and turn our eyes off here. And I'm not going to decimate this character. All I'm simply going to do is just come down here and select any brush that I have. We're going to use the ZRemesher guides. This way we can draw out some guides for how ZRemesher is going to go ahead and kick through. So what I mean there is we would want to go ahead and draw out some topology for the mouth shape, for how we would want that mouth to basically be retopologized. Same with the eye here. So I'm just going to try and get a decent circle for our eye there. Okay, and also for some specific areas like our face, if we would want to go ahead and do our fins here as well. I just need to basically draw through here, and I need to jump back one there because this is definitely going to get a little bit tricky to go ahead and draw that circle around our fin here. Just draw there. Go ahead and draw there. And draw an outline for our fin here. Okay, go ahead and jump back to the tail here as well. Okay, so with our ZRemesher guides in here, we'll jump back over our tool menu, geometry, and we're going to go ahead and ZRemesh this. And I'm not going to do this at the half because we don't want to cut this geometry in half. I want to make sure that it's going to get a full ZRemesher. So go ahead and turn that off, making sure that our target polygon count is at least 100. We'll go ahead and hit ZRemesh, and this is definitely going to take a little bit of time. Okay, so with that ZRemesh done, let's go ahead and take a look at the geometry that we get here. Okay, so you can see where this is fairly high, and there is no way that you would be able to take this into your 3D application to go ahead and rig. You definitely are going to have to go ahead and cut this again in half. So we'll go ahead and hit half, ZRemesh one more time. And it just takes a little bit of time to go ahead and run through. Okay, so there we're getting a little bit better feedback for our ZRemesh. We'll go ahead and do this one more time here. Okay, so now at this level of subdivision and this level of polygon count, this is definitely where you could go ahead and take this over to your primary 3D application. But for me personally, I think I would like to go ahead and maybe cut it in half one more time. Okay, so this would be, definitely perfect to go ahead and take over and really give yourself a method to go ahead and start doing retopology. But let's say that you want a little bit better definition on the eyes, a little bit better definition on the mouth, maybe a little bit better definition on the tail. What you can go ahead and do is just jump up a couple subdivision levels here. Okay, turn back on our what would eventually be our Manatee normal map creation for our high-res mesh. Basically, go ahead and just project, and if we go ahead and turn that Manatee off, you can see where you get that basic encompass a little bit better, and then just jump back down to your subdivision level 1, and you would just have to go ahead and jump into your primary 3D application to definitely do a little bit more retopology. But you can see where using Dynamesh and ZRemesher together that you can really come up with some awesome methods and definitely some awesome characters to go ahead and give yourself a head start. And it's much faster inside of ZBrush to go ahead and get those models basically cranked out. So there's a look at using ZRemesher and Dynamesh together to go ahead and quickly create characters. So thanks for watching.